Make sure you turn your, are you on mute and turn your volume all the way down.
So this is community radio. KABF 88.3.
The natural state could reap the benefits of a new.
Is the phone working?
I figured it over here. I think it's harder for music people to do it from here because the music's playing.
You do it where?
I picked it up from here and it worked.
Okay.
Okay, it's kind of crazy.
Is they keep telling us not to read. They keep telling us to press the button on the thing. Yeah, he keeps saying press it.
Yeah. We're trying to do, but there's always music playing, so it just messes me up. I don't know.
Let's see. Oh,
That's my own stuff. But if there's no music.
Gonna figure out there. Yeah. I don't know if that's it.
yeah. Okay. Whatever you think is best.
See you next week.
Take care, guys.
All right. See you later.
Advance bipartisan efforts to get protecting and expanding access to public lands and waters. According to Joey, who 60 years ago, 80 to 90% of Americans self-identified as environmentalists. Now polls show only 40% think that way. She believes depoliticizing environmental and conservation issues will foster bipartisan solutions for public lands and natural resources.
When we talk to people about the actual issues, a sweeping majority, 90% of Americans agree that the government has an obligation to ensure that all Americans have access to clean drinking water, that they have clean air, that we need to be protecting our endangered wildlife species.
Since returning to the White House,
Hey, back.
the city's to open up public lands for commercial development, oil and gas mining and timber industries, while transferring management of some from Arkansas to states. I'm Fogleman, Arkansas News Service, fire trust indicators, news service not delivered.
Support for KABF 88.3 FM comes from listeners and community partners. If you are a business owner or freedom event or would like information on how it can be announced, contact our office at 501-222-6119. That's 501-372-6119.
Thank you for listening to KABF 88.3 Voice of the People. This is Phoebe, host of Benjamin's Radio. Every week, volunteers like me do more than 100 hours of music and talk that you won't hear everywhere else. The generosity of listeners like you has helped KBS stay on the air since 1984, and we appreciate your support. By making a donation now, you can help us to continue bringing to Augusta diverse voices, diverse music, and diverse cultures from the community. Call us now at 501-433-0088 or visit us at www.kabf.org to support community radio. Thank you for your support.
Big changes are coming to food stamps and Medicaid. Do good for our big stuff. Access is getting harder. Need help? Call 494-64-034. Online at benefitrecipients.org. That's 646-494-6403 or benefitrecipients.org. Let's organize now. If you're eligible, these are your rights. Oh.
Yes, we coming in hot this morning with Luther Vandross singing "The House Is Not a Home." I thought that was quite pertinent for this conversation we're about to have right here on Community Voices, where we are live in the studio at 2101 South Main Street, KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. And I am your host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise. And live in studio is your co-host, the Pastor, Toney Orr. Greet us this morning, Tony.
Oh, that's one of my favorite top 5 songs of all time. It's one of the few songs I know the words from beginning to end. I don't have to improvise. A House Is Not a Home by the late great Luther Vandross. Just want to thank you for tuning in this morning, looking for a great conversation, and just reminding everybody that we are in Pledge Drive. Your donations and your pledges go to the sustainability of KABF 88.3 FM. We are one of 12 100,000 watt community radio stations, non-commercial, all non-profit radio stations. And so without you, we would not be able to do what we do for over 41 years. So just remember, just continue to support public radio. We know that there is a concerted effort to silence the voices of the community. But here on 21st and Main Street, here in Little Rock, Arkansas, our voices will be heard because we are the voice of the people.
Yeah, you got Low on the line already wishing us health, prosperity, and life, prosperity, and health as always. Katie Eisenhower, I ain't seen you in a long time on the line. Yes, Low, I came in with a Luther this morning. We're going to talk about Luther. And I see you, Singer. I see you. Thank y'all for joining us. And we need to be greeted by one more somebody. Backed by popular demand. Backed by popular demand. Y'all call me, y'all send me messages. Y'all were like, listen, I need to hear from him again. So we want to hear from Adam Fogleman. Can you greet us this morning, please?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Adam Fogleman. I'm a candidate for Pulaski County Treasurer and live in the Petaway neighborhood. And I'm excited to be with you today. I want to remind you, early voting starts on February 17th. Election day is coming up soon, 3 weeks from today on March 3rd.
3 weeks from today on March 3rd. We want to also remind you always that we are so grateful for your presence. We are grateful every time you show up, however you show up. We are so glad about it because we wouldn't, I don't know if you heard the announcement, 43 years. Since 1984, however many years that is, we've been right here because of you. You make it possible. And we want you to know that we appreciate you. Yes, in the spirit of gratitude, thank you for being here. And we greet you in that spirit of Sawubona, that spirit of oneness that binds us together by our humanity. Ain't nothing you can do about the fact that we are bound together by our humanity, but we can work on how that manifests in us. And that's what these conversations are always undergirded by. How do we show, improve, and demonstrate our oneness with each other? And we also center community voices in Blackness in the context of the human story. We center Blackness in the context of the human story. So all humans are invited to the story where we just gonna center Blackness. And that's why we got Adam here today. Adam's finna talk about some black folk. Adam finna center some Blackness up in here today. That's what we gonna do. But before we get started, I want to ground our conversation in Luther's song and also in our EJI tidbit for today. I chose this song by Luther. Like Tony said, many of us already know the song from beginning to end. We know Luther Vandross, the late, the great, absolutely. And so this song, when Luther is talking about the relationship that he is having, and many people will listen to this song and assume that the relationship is about a couple who's heterosexual. That's what we will assume. And that's what Luther needs us to assume. Requires that we assume that this is about a heterosexual relationship, because the fact of the matter is that Luther was same gender loving. But he knew in the world in which we live, if he had said that out loud, people knew it, but if he had said it out loud, some of y'all would have stopped listening to his music. And so he said, whatever they need to believe about me, let them believe it, because this is my craft. This is my art. This is my gift. I want to share it with the world. I don't want anything to serve as a barrier for that. No kind of identification, no kind of label. I don't want anything. So in this song, this couple, the house is a building for them. That's all it is. It's a building. But what makes it a home is what happens on the inside. How they treat each other, how they relate to each other, how they love on each other, how they challenge each other, how they work through that thing, how they get in on the flow of what it means to do life together. That's what they're talking about. And evidently, this person has left the house. And he's like, wait, listen, when I climb up these stairs, I need to know that you are here. I need to say, I need to know that when I walk through these doors, there is somebody in here waiting for me, that loves me through and through, that sees me through and through, that appreciates me through and through, that respects me through and through. I need to know, because in this world that we are living in, especially as Black folks, we don't have too many spaces. I really can't think of but one space where you know that you can go and find peace and be exactly who you are. And that's your home. And if it ain't your home, we might need to have another conversation if it ain't your home. But how many places do you have where you can just show up and be exactly who you are and be loved through and through for it? And so since Adam is a builder of homes, he is a constructionist. What you call yourself, an architect? What you
Not an architect. I'm just a builder.
just a build. So what's the difference?
Well, an architect is going to be somebody that's licensed by the state and qualified to design mostly commercial structures. They can design houses too, but
So you ain't got no license?
not to design commercial buildings. Licensed contractor.
Aren't we talking about a commercial building today?
That one we haven't started that, and we'll bring a commercial contractor in to work with us.
Okay, well, well, we'll get into it. I digress. I lose focus. Sometimes people tell me, girl, you lose focus. Hold on. Okay, I digress. And so since Adam is a builder of homes, I want to talk a little bit about what that means on that side of the fence for us that are living in the home. But what does it mean for the builder to say, I want to make sure that I am creating a space for people to come in and make it a home. And I want to make sure that there are no barriers that we have put in place by the building of it that keep them from doing exactly that. They need to find their own flow in the way we came in with the building. What was on our minds? So we're going to talk about that, but it's rooted in, not in Adam, it's rooted in William Laporte. So I wanted to make sure that we ground our conversation in that and in the EJI tidbit. What do you want to share with us about this building, about William Laporte?
Let's start just a little bit on the building. It was built in 1899. It's been standing for 126 years. It's in pretty poor condition right now because of the toll of time. It wasn't well maintained for the last 35 years. It hasn't had any occupants since 1992. And the work for us started by looking at the history. And that's where we rediscovered Mr. Laporte. William Laporte was born in 1828 in the Arkansas Post. Now, I don't want to just tell the story. I want to paint this picture, because 1828 in Arkansas, it was 8 years before Arkansas became a state. It was 4 years after the Quapaw Treaty. The Quapaw Nation is still present in the state of Arkansas at that time. Arkansas Port is a trading post established by the French just a few miles up the mouth of the Arkansas River off of the Mississippi River. So it's a stopping point for people coming up the Mississippi River. Laporte, the name Laporte actually means of the port. He's a child of the city. That's actually what the last name represents. He's born into slavery, and at the age of 12, he escapes, makes his way to New Orleans. I looked it up this morning. It's about 500 miles from the Arkansas Post to New Orleans. Google Maps said if you walked it, it'd take a week. 12-year-old. From New Orleans, he makes his way to New York. From New York, he gets into Windsor, Ontario, in Canada. And from there, he negotiates his freedom. He ends up working, after he negotiates his freedom, he ends up working as a blacksmith and aboard steamboats on the Mississippi River. Saves enough money to purchase the freedom of his mom and his sister, and brings them to St. Louis, brings them north. Before the outbreak of the Civil War, he's engaged in I think it's the Fremont campaign. It's the first abolitionist that runs for president. While he's on that campaign, he meets his first wife, and they've got 2 kids. He joins the Massachusetts 54th.
Yeah.
This is the Black regiment in the Civil War. He goes to South Carolina to fight alongside other soldiers fighting for freedom. And I wish I had more details on that, but he is discharged. He comes back. He ends up farming for a few years. Oh, I missed a point that I've got to tell. So before the outbreak of the Civil War, he actually hooks up with the Valley family, and it's Valle, I believe. That's the French family that founded St. Genevieve. It's the first French settlement in the Missouri Territory. And he travels Europe with them for a year, comes back. That's when he joins up with the Massachusetts 54th, fights in the war, thankfully survives, comes home. And one of the things that the Massachusetts 54th is known for is their courage under fire. Like they took on an assault of one of the forts in South Carolina that was deemed impossible to overtake, and they overtook it. These were men fighting not just for their lives, but for the freedom of their people, and to destroy the bondage that Mr. Laporte had already escaped. After coming out of the Civil War, he starts farming in Illinois. Does that for a few years, and then leaves there. He actually leaves his family behind in Illinois. He goes to Memphis to learn how to be a mason and plasterer. And in 1870, he returns to Arkansas. 1870 Arkansas, it's the height of beginning, the early stages of Reconstruction. And Arkansas was a beacon of hope in some ways during the Reconstruction period. This was not people who just stuck around. There were people coming to Arkansas There were freedmen coming to Arkansas because it was a place where you could establish yourself. And it's kind of like we all heard about the Black Wall Street in Tulsa and the prosperity that was happening there. The same thing was happening here in Little Rock. On arrival, Mr. Laporte establishes himself. Within 20 years, he's got 9 rent houses, rent buildings. He's got a house that is now, where it's kind of ironic, it's sad, but ironic, where Arkansas Heritage's main office is standing on North Street. He later moved to a home on West 8th, so just 1 block north of Little Rock's 9th Street. And we know what the importance of Little Rock's 9th Street was.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well,
Somebody might not know.
Little Rock's 9th Street was the equivalent of Black Main Street. It was the heart of the Black economy. You got the Templar Mosaic Templar building right there at the corner of Broadway and 9th, and stretching to the west. And now it's interrupted by 630, but it used to continue on where 630 stands right now. And it was about a 2 or 3 mile stretch of Black wealth.
Yeah, it was interrupted on purpose by 630.
Yes. And Mr. Laporte was one of those builders of wealth. He did it by building houses. He did it by laying tile. He laid the tile in St. Andrew's Cathedral downtown. They ended up trying not to pay him. He took him to the Supreme Court and ended up winning.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Laporte.
Okay.
The
I like the songs with church would do.
he was the mason on the Peabody School. So if you've ever heard of Carnegie Libraries, Carnegie was a wealthy industrialist who put a bunch of money in to building libraries across the country. Mr. Peabody did the same thing with schools, and he was an English industrialist that gave a bunch of money around the world to build schools. And in Little Rock, the Peabody School used to stand about where Rockefeller Elementary stands today. It was removed. I think it was removed about the time that I-30 was developed.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And that there was a beautiful brick building. He also built a Freedmen's College. He was the mason that constructed a Freedmen's College in Southwest Missouri. And he was on the board of a conference of trustees that established a preacher's college here in Little Rock. That preacher's college became Philander Smith. And he was still on the board when Philander Smith was founded. This guy's got a rich history. He was on the board of Arkansas's Capital City Savings Bank. It was Little Rock's first and Arkansas's second Black-owned bank. This guy did everything. The best part of the story, one of my favorite pieces of the story, is that when he was older in his years, he traveled back to some of the places he'd been through his life. He went back to St. Louis because he'd lived there for a little bit. And when he was there, he came across Miss Gibson. She was on hard times.
Who is Miss Gibson?
The wife of the man who had enslaved William Laporte. She'd fallen on hard times. He gave her enough money to live on for the rest of her life. I don't have words.
Well, I got some words for that. I knew you were going to tell that story, but before I go there, I just want to, okay, maybe I'll just stay right here. So I knew that you were going to say that that's your favorite part of the story, where this Black formerly enslaved man runs into, just serendipitously runs into the wife of the man that formerly enslaved him. And he, I don't know, has mercy on her, takes pity on her, whatever the word is. And just as you said, he decided to care for her for the rest of her days. And it's interesting to me that you find that to be so fascinating, right? Because I find it to be, it boils my blood, it makes my blood boil. Makes my blood boil. Because what I hear in this is what I see happening all the time, even now in these days, where one of the things that we have been taught, particularly as Black folks, is the need, the necessity, the requirement that we forgive no matter what. I'm thinking about Botham Jean. I don't know if y'all remember him, the woman who happens to be white. She was a white woman. She was a cop. She walked into his apartment and killed him in his apartment, talking about she thought it was her own apartment. She's on trial. And before she's found guilty, but his brother from the witness stand asks the judge, "Can I give her a hug?" Now, this the white woman that just killed your brother. And then before she goes off to prison, the judge says, "You know what? I want to give you this Bible. And I got it marked on the book of John for you. I want you to read. I want you to have this Bible when you go." Like, what is it about us that no matter what people do to us, we still raise up and find a way to make sure we forgive? Because I know that's what we've been taught by religion, but what is that really about? And so when you said, when I was reading about this and you were telling the story, I wanted to ask you, why is it so fascinating to you?
I think it's a powerful moment. I think it's a powerful lesson in for not only forgiveness, but decency. The man, he was the decent man. He was the man who had risen above a condition that was imposed on him in a way that was and created monumental wealth. He was one of Little Rock's richest men at the time of his death in I believe it was 1913. And to find somebody that he could have easily turned away from and said, I owe you nothing. Not only do I owe you nothing, you owe me because of the conditions that you imposed on me. And instead of that, whether it was inspired by his faith, I can't say.
Oh, I don't know either.
But it has to have been a moment of forgiveness. I'm sure he had reached that a long time ago because of the success and moving on from what his experience was, or learning from his experience, or building on it. I don't know, but it's just to me, it's just a powerful moment in grace.
Wait, hold on just a minute. And Lowe says religion, and then in parentheses, he has forgiveness is used to cover malicious deeds. Religion, and he has forgiveness in parentheses, is used to cover malicious deeds. Go ahead, Tom.
I look at it in a different aspect. I don't think it's about forgiveness. When we talk about the show of what we're trying to do is, yes, we're centering Black people in the totality of the human existence. Even with the song, "A House Is Not Home," here's a human person, releasing emotions, human emotions about somebody else, about something else. And you can even correlate that to what's going on in
Caller, you're live on the air, KABF at 8.3. Thanks for calling Community Voices. Caller. Call back, caller.
And you could even correlate that with what's going on. I think at that moment, Mr. Laporte may have looked at this person as a human being, looked at the wife of the enslaver, of his enslaver, that this is a human being, and the existence of me being a human and this person being a human, there's a need for this human person. And I think that's the thing that gets lost a lot of times, is that we're constantly talking about how do we look at each other and how do we move as human? How do we look in that spirit of sorrow? A lot of times we bring in other things that stop us from being human. So I'm not looking at it and that, I'm looking at it in a different way. He's a human person, regardless of the actions, regardless of the history, regardless of whatever. He is a human person that's in need. And my humanity, not so much my forgiveness, but my humanity requires me to look out for this person.
I don't think so. I don't think that if he had chosen not to take care of her. He wouldn't have been any less human than he is by taking care of her. His humanity is not on the line. That's not what's on the line. And so I don't believe, and see, I think that's part of the problem, that we've been taught that we have to forgive. There are some things that cannot be forgiven. Some things. I tell y'all all the time, I love to watch reality crime shows because I want to go and I want to read and I want to see. When you harm children, why do I have to forgive you for that? To say, oh, if I forgive, that's what makes me human. No, I don't have. To me, sometimes I feel like you're not human when you forgive in that moment. The ones that were killed at Bible study at Mother Emanuel, before their bodies were even warm in the ground, they had already, the family members had already forgiven the people who had killed them. The young man who killed, like, that is not human to me. And so I don't feel like we allow ourselves to be human by saying, if you don't forgive, you're not human. Caller, you're on the air. Thanks for calling.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, the KABF. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my point of view is about forgiving. If a person, okay, I'm talking now. If a person or people can replace all the hurt and harm they have did to some other people, if they can replenish that, then I would say, okay, I forgive you. But if you can't make up for what you did, then you're going to have to deal with the Creator, because I have no intention of forgiving. I may not want to retaliate, but we are not. If I tell you I forgive you for beating me up today, hell, I'm facing saying it's okay. I'm going to whoop me again. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not in all that forgiving mode for people knowing that they done wrong and continue and mistreat people. That ain't none of my job. They're going to have to deal with the Creator about their behavior. If the Creator want to forgive them, that's the Creator. I ain't thinking about forgiving. Like,
And so here's Lo on the line saying, some hurts cut so deep that forgiveness is not even on the table. Some hurts cut so deep that forgiveness is not even on the table. So I appreciate what the caller said about, listen, forgiveness has to be a two-way street, right? So you expect me to, but what are you going to do? How are you going to make amends? How are you going to offer reparations? Like, what are you going to do about all the stuff that you want me to forgive you for? And if you're not doing anything about that, like, what are we even talking about right now? Why is the onus on me, the one who was burdened, to be the one that says, oh, let me show my humanity, but there's no requirement for the other person to do so? But I don't want to get caught up in that. I just knew you were going to say that, Al. I knew you were going to say that because I knew that I know you love that story. But I want to talk about the building, because I remember you saying this, and I hope that you engage some other folks like me in the conversation about how you want to embody Mr. Laporte in the building. Remember you told me that? Say that out loud to the people. You said it was really important that what now?
So I think it's really important that even when I'm not around to tell the story, that his story is embodied in the building, whether it's a plaque on the side or some other something else to evidence his connection to the building and his story. And I don't know the perfect way to tell that story, but I want to deliver on it.
That's why I said I hope you engage some other people in the conversation. And so this building, now that you own the building, so you are, I'm assuming that you're going to rehab it at some point. And so when you were talking about this, because Adam is the one who wrote made the application for, or you made the plea for the city not to destroy the building because they were going to destroy it, right?
So there was a time where before I purchased it, there was a time where the city board was considering tearing the building down, and it was 5 or 6 years later that I had the opportunity to purchase it. And so I wasn't involved yet with the building at the time that the city was considering tearing it down. But I'm grateful now that they didn't, because that offered the opportunity to reveal this story.
Oh, so then I got that. I misunderstood that. But so what you did was get it on the National Historical Register.
Yes, so I did the research into the history of the building and into the history of Mr. Laporte, and prepared that and presented it to the state of Arkansas so that they could make a decision of whether to nominate it to the federal government for for National Register status.
And they did do that.
They did do that.
They did do that. And so you were talking about how you get tax credits for rehabilitation and for restoration of these buildings. And I was just wondering if you feel like every builder, regardless of your race, has access to that information. They know that, hey, if you get this building and you want to restore, you got these credits. You can. Do you think that information is widely accessible by every builder?
I don't know that every builder knows about it yet, but anybody who has kind of dipped their toe in the historic tax credit world is happy to talk about it, because it's such a powerful resource to not only preserve the buildings, but preserve the stories. And I think that this building is a great example because of the story that is connected to it, because of the story of Mr. Laporte. It connects 1828 Arkansas to 2026.
Yeah, that's another reason we do the EJI tidbits, because we need to connect the dots. We need you to see exactly what's going on and has been going on. And one of the ways that we can interrupt what's been going on is by voting. I want to remind you that early voting starts on February 17th. That means you can vote anywhere. And then on the 3rd of March, you can only vote at the station that you've been assigned by the circuit clerk.
So, Adam, have you did any research to find out, are their descendants still here in Little Rock or somewhere of Mr. Laporte? And and that could be a way of helping to create this story and legacy for Mr. Laporte.
So one of the things in my own story, and I think one of the things that gave me the tools to find Mr. Laporte's story, is that I've dug into my own family's history, and so researching historic records and genealogy. So along the way, in doing this research, I built a family tree for Mr. Laporte. And one of the things that I found was that his great-great-grandson is a guy named Manny Jackson. Have you ever heard the name Manny Jackson?
I haven't.
Manny Jackson was one of the basketball players that integrated the University of Illinois. He went on to a corporate career with Honeywell and then bought a basketball team called the Harlem Globetrotters after bankruptcy. Manny Jackson's the guy who made the Harlem Globetrotters what they are today.
Wow.
And he's got a book on his own life story called Boxcars to Boardrooms. The guy was he has a history. Obviously some of the elements of time have changed, but when he was born into a boxcar into poverty in Illinois. And he was born in Illinois because William Laporte's kids and his first wife never came to Arkansas. When Laporte died, his wife here had died before him, and he's buried in the Oakland Fraternal Cemetery at 70 Tulip in an unmarked grave. He's got no headstone. His son, who survived him, inherited the wealth and took it to Illinois, but never put a headstone on his dad's grave.
So Lowe says those tax credits are controlled by the state and are used for any economic development. Those tax credits are controlled by the state and are used for any economic development. I just wonder how, because a lot of times I feel like, this is me personally, I feel like there are conversations happening in the world somewhere. And people are in a room at a table and they're making all these decisions, and I don't have access to the room. I don't even know where the room is. I don't know what time the meeting is. I haven't received an invitation. And then all of a sudden this stuff happens and it's like, oh, well, you can have tax credits. Well, I didn't know that. Who knew that? And so I wanted to know if that information is widely accessible to all builders. Because I remember when I talked to Mike Orndorff one day, and he told me that I would be hard pressed to find a Black or brown person who can do what he does with the building in this community. I said, wait, what now? And I said, well, what makes it? He said, because they got bad credit. Because right now I already owe the bank money, and I can go right now and they'll still give me another line of credit, even though I owe them money. And I said, do you not think that race plays a role? No, it's about me. I'm the one who made sure I was making good decisions, and I made sure that I had good credit. And so I'm young. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? No, he was not kidding, because that's what he truly believed. And so I'm wondering now, that's what makes me say, like, there really are some rooms that Black people can't get into. And that's why we talk about the need for people with privilege, people with white people with privilege, to all of us have some kind of privilege, but white people especially to use your privilege. We were talking about Paul Simon the other day, and he used his privilege to go over to Africa to talk to the South Africans, to give them a platform. Yes, he did do that, but he also made sure that every time they sang that song Graceland. So it continued to push Graceland further and further into the mainstream. And he's pretty much famous for it. Why couldn't he have said, hey, I'm going to give you a platform and I'm going to step back and let you take it. I'm just going to open the door and let you have it. And so I wanted to that's why I would ask you the question, though. Do you really believe that these conversations are, the information is accessible to all? And you answered it. You said that if you dip your toe into this realm, then you will have access to the information. Pat Rogers Ward is on the line. Good morning, Miss Pat. Adam said he's going to get the mayor of Wrightsville to come on so we can talk about the Wrightsville 21. Didn't you say that, Adam?
Yes.
All right, Miss Pat. So you might want to get him on your show too, because I got the conversation came up. Actually, Ezekiel called last week and brought it up. But I remember when I was sitting in the room with you and you were having a show, and I was going to do the jazz show after you, and you talked about it. So I want you to know that everybody's trying to get in on this conversation to help you move it forward, because I know that you are really interested in that. Thanks for joining us today. And then Kenyon Lowe says that's the inhumane system. I can't remember exactly what I said that made him say that, but he said that's the inhumane system. And so I wanted to ask another question for you, Adam.
Okay.
Well, right. Let me ask this. When you were researching your own family, did you find out that some of your ancestors were enslavers?
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I've wrestled with that. I'm not proud of it.
I would hope not.
Obviously.
Right.
My family came to Arkansas around 1812, and there were cousins and a great grandfather that did enslave people. I'm not proud of it. I can't change it.
Well, of course you can't change it. We're not asking you to, but there are some ways that you can live differently and tell different stories and teach different stories. Like Jew, are you teaching Jew stories about history? Like I'm not asking you, did you say you know your people were enslaved? I'm not saying that, but I mean, because I know he's growing up, right? Like, do you all have these conversations? Because people, especially in Black families, you hear about the talk we always have to have with our children. Like, you need to know because you are Black. And I'm not sure. I don't know. Do y'all? You say y'all do talk about stuff like this?
So I've got a 7-year-old son, and with us being in Little Rock, we've got some easy examples where we can go down 9th Street and I can talk about the impact of 630. I can talk about the history and legacy that was destroyed by the development of the interstate, and it was on, like you said, it's on purpose. We've had conversations about Central High and what happened in 1957. And we've had conversations about Dr. King and Dr. Pettaway, for that matter, and the legacy that they leave and the teachings that were centered at the center of this mission and message.
So here, I'm sorry, hold on, here's Low. Yet he, talking about you, Adam, he benefits from that system of inhumanity. We don't call it white supremacy because ain't nothing supreme about y'all being white, but the actions of the system are inhumane. So we call it the system of white inhumanity. So that's what he's talking about. How does he, talking about you, Adam, see himself correcting those inhumane ways? And I think you've already said you can't correct them, but so I think the question is, how do you see yourself living and moving differently among us so that you don't repeat those ways? I think that's probably a better way of asking the question.
Well, I think I have to answer that 2 ways. First is on a personal basis, lifting up Black stories. The Laporte story, Dr. Pettaway's story, telling the stories that, like I said last week, they're not my story, although I share in the legacy of those stories.
Oh, okay.
And whether those are stories that are centered here in Little Rock or centered where I grew up in East Arkansas, that's a piece of it. The other piece of it, I think, is identifying and tearing out the heart of the systemic problems.
Mm-hmm.
There are still policies on the books in the city of Little Rock that were established in 1961 or 1929 Part of that is how neighborhoods are built,
Mhm.
and the the way that some of these downtown neighborhoods were constructed. They're founded on lessons that were learned over 1,000 years. The transition away from those lessons is rooted in division.
Mhm.
It's rooted in division of finance. It's rooted in division of culture. It's rooted in division of people. And we have to start and tear away those those policies that underlie, regardless of the impact that they've had. If the motivation was improper, then we need to address it.
Tony, were you going to, I think I stopped you from saying something.
So Adam, when you were talking to your son about different things, do you introduce, so, okay, here is our family tree, here's our family, and this is the legacy of our family, and here is how you can change that legacy, you can do something differently. I think, I forget the legislator, I want to say Lowry some years ago, who talked about they didn't want, one of the reasons they didn't want Black history to be taught or slavery to be taught because it made young white children feel guilty.
Mhm.
They didn't want them to feel guilty. So let's not talk about this, but I don't think, I think it's just a thing of let's recognize, like you said, you recognize that your family, in your family history, there was enslavers. I recognize it, I accept it, and then let me try to find a way to move past it. And do you talk to your son about that? We had a conversation on one show where you want to be a naturalized German citizen, you had to, own up and accept the history of the Holocaust with Germany. You had to accept everything, and then you had to pledge that I'm going to do everything I can to create a different narrative, to do things differently. And I just want to know, do you have that conversation with your son?
Well, Jude is only 7. He's only 7. So it's only so much that he can absorb right as a 7-year-old. I just want to remind. And he's looking more and more like you. Anyway, go ahead.
And those are conversations that are happening and will happen. I think it's important to develop both connection to the past and personal identity.
Mhm.
And that's a hard thing because one can overwhelm the other. Some people can forget about the connections to the past, whether it's through their family or through their place. You can forget about those connections and focus entirely on yourself, or you can get lost in history and not even recognize who your own self is. These are hard questions.
And hard answers and hard, yes, but we have to have them.
Yes.
We have to have the conversation. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF 88.3 FM. Caller, call me back. Call me back, caller. So Adam, I wanted to I have another question for you, but before I have a question over here, then you'll say something like, wait, let me stay right here. So I noticed how your entire demeanor changed when you began to talk about the history of your family, like your family's legacy. And when Tony said that about, the person didn't want to feel guilty, I wonder if do you feel guilt? Because your whole body changed,
It's
everything.
heavy. I'm not gonna take on the guilt that should belong to another man.
Okay.
But it's heavy.
Mhm.
I think I recognized, even I started doing my family research when I was about 18, and so that was the easiest thing to discover was this is who they were at that time. You mean to pause for the call?
Go ahead, keep going.
And this was a heavy fact that I've had to consider and find a way through and forward and sit in. And I know for myself that it means that if anything, I've got to be more willing to sit and listen and understand, or try to understand the viewpoints of other people.
Yeah, and so we only have a couple of more minutes, so I want to make sure I ask you this question. What are your plans for the building?
So historically, it was a grocery store. It started out as
Mhm.
a black
Mhm.
grocer.
Uh-huh.
And after I think the first 7 years, it was the man who lived there. They lived upstairs, so the grocer lived upstairs and had a grocery store downstairs. After about 7 years, the lady of the house ran a restaurant downstairs,
Mhm.
and he worked for the railroad. Then it went back to being a grocery store, a black grocery store. Then it became a white grocery store, and then an Italian immigrant family bought it in the 1920s, and it stayed an Italian grocery store from 1922 until 1958. Um, my plan is to bring people back in. I want life in the building. I want lights on in the building. The upstairs of the building will probably be returned to a residence, so that the people can live there full time. Downstairs, in the back, there may be some small office space. The front of the store, we're not sure yet, but I'd like to have an environment where people are welcomed in, so that they get to experience the building and get to share in the story.
Okay, let me see what Lois is saying. Yet many, I think he means Caucasians. I think he means Caucasians. Yet many Caucasians have the same sentiment that those past travesties have nothing to do with them, yet they directly benefit from this inhumane system. Many Caucasians have the same sentiment that those past travesties have nothing to do with them, yet they directly benefit from this inhumane system. I think he means the part where you said, I'm not going to take on the guilt of somebody else. Did you mean to say, did you mean for him to interpret that as you don't, they don't have, that doesn't have anything to do with
Oh,
you?
no,
Okay.
no. I recognize the groundwork that was laid then certainly has benefited my family through time.
Mm.
And that's something that I've got to wrestle with still.
Yeah. Tony, were you about to say something? Okay, so we got 2 more minutes, Adam. Anything that you want to close us out with? Because I want to make sure you have the final word.
So-
on you.
You started out by saying that as a builder, you wanted to know what was considered when building a home.
Mhm.
And my view of home is more broad than a building. It's a neighborhood. And so when we build places, I think the first and most important thing is that whatever we build is more beautiful than the thing that we have replaced. So if we're replacing nature, if it's wilderness, then we've got to take care to build well so that people can commute, so that we can have community in that place. And as much as anything, that means that we need to be mindful of the space between buildings, how far apart they are, how they interact with each other, and that, because that drives how people interact with each other.
And how do you think about, as a builder, you right now, just talking about you and your company, do you feel like you're changing the face of the neighborhood? Like, I come in and when I moved here, it was like a black neighborhood. Like when I moved in my house, that used to be your house.
Yeah.
That's how we know each other. Okay, so everybody around me was black.
Yeah.
And that's not the case now. You all are doing more building now than you were when I first came in. And so I'm just telling from what I saw. I don't know what you were doing, but from what I saw. And so in thinking about the neighborhood, in thinking about what a home really means and how they interact, in thinking about all of that, are you trying to change the face? Because there's way more white people in here now than it was when I came in.
So I'm not trying to change the face. In fact, I've tried to embrace the folks who've lived here for 40 years.
Mhm.
And because I recognize that I'm not coming in and building community. I'm coming into an existing community
Mhm.
and working to bring additional life into it. In about 2010, the Downtown Little Rock Community Development Corporation, which is centered in its activity in the Petaway neighborhood, in a community meeting, asked the existing residents of the neighborhood, well, what do you want? What do you want to see? Not what do you want the house to look like, but what do you want the impacts to be? And the feedback was, we want neighbors, we want moms pushing strollers, we want kids running the streets. And the CDC responded at the time by building a couple of the modern houses. There's one at the corner of 16th and Commerce. There's another one at 18th and Cumberland. And the third is mid-block on commerce between, I think it's 18th and Charles Bussey. And that was a partnership with the University of Arkansas School of Architecture that inspired other developers and builders to come in. And the result of the Community Development Corporation's work has been to deliver more moms pushing strollers and more neighbors on sidewalks and more conversations from front porches. And I think the value of the work has been to reknit the place together, adding neighbors, but to reknit the community together through additional neighbors, so that we don't have houses that are sitting empty. We don't have lots that are forgotten about and sitting empty. And there's no perfect way. We're humans. To err is to human. But if we do our very best, we will be better for it. And I think that's the approach that I've tried to take, is to do my best for the place.
I sure wish we had time for you to respond to this. So Lo says, in my opinion, what you're doing is gentrifying the neighborhood. That's what he said. In my opinion, you gentrify, and it's not just his opinion; it's my opinion too. And so I wish we had time. Maybe. Lo,
So-
can he respond real quick? Yes, go ahead.
So I think there's some truth to that. I'm not going to deny that.
You're the first one. Oh my goodness, the first one who has said this to me.
But I think that the intent is not to remove culture. It's not to remove people. And so if in addressing infill development, which is necessary for the health of the city, we've got to be careful to preserve the stories of the place, to preserve the identity of the place. And the best first step that the Petaway neighborhood took was to identify itself after Dr. Petaway.
Mm-hmm.
The next best step was to work to stabilize the community through the affordable housing development, so that there could be a functional housing market in the Petaway neighborhood. And I wish that there was a better way to develop. Affordable housing is still a focus of the Community Development Corporation, and it is regearing to expand its affordable housing opportunities in the neighborhood and around downtown. It takes both. But if there's no displacement of people, if there's no displacement of culture, if the thing that changes is the blending of cultures and community through the addition of new neighbors, I think that's an element of community in and of itself.
Thank you, Adam, for coming in. You responded to the people. They wanted to hear more about Mr. William Laporte, and you delivered today. Thank you so much. And you got to come back so we can talk about Wrightsville. And as soon as we get all that scheduled, you'll be back again. Thank y'all so much for joining us for Community Voices. We have been live right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. You do not want to touch that dial, because you got 2 hours of jazz coming up from your girl Lola already in the house. And she's going to start with the ladies. And I don't know if this is jazz or not, but I'm going to start with one of my favorite songs, and we're going to leave you with Misty Blue by Dorothy Moore. We'll see y'all next time.
You do a great job.